Hello and welcome. This is Jeremy from Legal Studies Advantage. In this video, I'd like to provide for you a very brief overview of constitutional law. First, an overview. Most law school constitutional law covers the following major subject areas: sources of federal government power, limitations on federal and state government actions, and protections of individual rights against federal and state government actions. Number 2, federal government powers. Each of the three branches of the U.S. federal government, the executive, judicial, and legislative, has distinctive powers granted to it by the Constitution. An example of one important legislative power is the Commerce Clause. This grants broad power to Congress to create many different laws that affect interstate commerce. Number 3, federalism. Federalism refers to the constitutional balance of powers and hierarchy of legal authority between the federal and state governments. An example of one important federalism doctrine would be the Dormant Commerce Clause, which restricts states from passing certain laws that might negatively impact interstate commerce. Number 4, procedural due process. Federal or state government actions or laws can only deprive a person of life, liberty, or property if they first provide the person with adequate process. Usually there must be sufficient notice and hearing in order to satisfy that process requirement for such a deprivation to be considered fair under the Constitution. Number 5, substantive due process and equal protection. Substantive due process requires federal and state government actions and laws to be fair in the way they regulate the rights of people. Equal protection requires federal and state government actions or laws to be fair in the way they treat individuals or classes differently. To be fair, these actions or laws must be sufficiently related to a valid government purpose. If there is no valid government purpose, or if the actions or laws are not really related to that purpose, then they will be found to be unconstitutional. Let's talk briefly here about levels of scrutiny. There are standards called levels of scrutiny that have been adopted to gauge the constitutional fairness of government actions and laws. Number 1, for certain rights, the standard that must be met is higher. This is required under substantive due process requirements of the Due Process Clause. Number 2, likewise for certain classifications of people, the standard that must be met is also higher. This is required under the Equal Protection Clause. Application of the levels of scrutiny is a very important area of constitutional law and is likely to be highly tested, or at least a very highly testable area on your law school exams. Number 6, the First Amendment. The First Amendment applies as a constitutional limitation on federal and state government actions or laws that seek to regulate, among other things, religion and speech. The levels of scrutiny also apply here. The scrutiny standards apply again in some First Amendment issues dealing with laws that impose some restriction on free speech. Higher scrutiny levels apply, making it harder for laws to be found constitutional, where actions or laws restrict the message that is communicated. This is sometimes referred to as content-based restrictions. On the other hand, lower levels of scrutiny are used to measure the constitutionality of laws that regulate certain other aspects of communication, such as times, places, or manners of speech, instead of actually restricting the content of the message itself. Special measures of constitutionality also apply to certain types of speech regulating laws, such as laws that restrict obscenity, commercial speech, and defamation. Where laws may be affecting the exercise of religion, the application of various tests will come into play that include the highest standard of scrutiny in some cases and other specialized tests for constitutionality in other cases. That concludes our brief overview of constitutional law. Please visit our website at www.1lsuccess.com or www.legalstudiesadvantage.com for more information about how our 1L Success Package can help you to succeed in law school. Again, that's www.1lsuccess.com with the number 1 or www.legalstudiesadvantage.com. Legal Studies Advantage, LLC, reinventing legal education.